So it was pointed out to me by a helpful comment that people were coming to this video because it said Tacoma. It wasn't about Tacomas. So let's make it a little bit about the Tacoma here. This weekend replaced a lot of parts. Most of the front suspension, CV axles, inner and outer tie rod, sway bar end links. So yeah, 95 first gen Tacoma. Riding pretty sweet now. And so front end, we got the new GABA uppers, Bilstein 5100s, Old Man Emu coils, factory OEM lower ball joints, the Napa Extreme extended axles. We've got some new sway bar end links, and then the 555 inner and outer tie rods. So there you go, first gen 95 Tacoma. Hope this makes you happy. So, again, to that commenter, you're absolutely right. I do this in the Tacoma. I put Tacoma in the title. I put it in all the tags. I do that because I know that people want to watch Tacoma videos, which I do too, and I want to make them, but you know, I want to share Jesus more. And so, yeah, it is a little bait and switch. Okay. If you'll notice though, a lot of times I do try to make some sort of connection between life events and what Jesus is telling me about. And so, you know, I just mentioned the fact that I rebuilt front end of the Tacoma. So the way that went down, month and a half ago, I did the Bilstein 5100s Old Man Emu coils, the heavy duty coils, since I have the ARB bumper and a winch. I did the add-a leaf in the back. And when I did it, I was in kind of a hurry. I needed to get to an event. I wanted the extra ground clearance. So I threw it on there knowing that I was gonna have to come back and address some issues. Fast forward about a month, I spot one of my CV axles leaking at the boot. So I figured, you know what, we'll just go ahead and take this opportunity. We'll replace both of them, get the Napa lifetime warranty axles, those extended length, extreme duty, whatever they're called. I also knew that I wanted to replace the upper control arms with the JBA versions, just to correct the alignment. After I got the lift done the first time, or after I put the lift on the first time, they could not align it properly because of the new angles. So I knew I was going to have to get the uppers. So I put the JBA uppers on. So initially I just ordered JBA uppers and axles. So I get in there, I start tearing it apart. You know, I go ahead and first thing I do is I take off that outer tie rod. I realize, okay, that's junk. And then once I free it, it flops down and I realize, okay, the inner's junk. And then at that point, I started to take off the actual knuckle, because you got to press out that top ball joint, replace it with an adapter. And so when I took off the knuckle from the lower ball joint, I realized that's junk. And so I end up replacing basically almost everything. So I replaced the lower ball joints. I replaced the inner and outer tie rods. I went with the 555. They're supposedly a little bit better quality, close to OEM. The lower ball joints were OEM. The sway bar end links are just whatever they had at the shop. Don't really care about those. Just went ahead and replaced those. The bushings were a little bit worn. And then, of course, I replaced the lower ball joints with OEM versions. And so, basically, the whole front end on this thing is brand new, which is great. Here's the point that I want to make. I thought I knew what the problem was. I needed new axles. I needed some new upper control arms to fix the alignment issues. But when I got in there and I started looking at the problem, I realized there's more problems. And I could have ignored them, and I could have fixed the problem just enough, but eventually I was going to have more problems. Those of you that know me and what I'm going through in my life know that I'm in quote-unquote recovery. I had some issues last year, kind of blew up my life. And so as I've been walking through recovery, I was listening to a podcast, and it was saying, like, if you don't completely allow Jesus to change your life, and you just kind of work on fixing the issues that you know about, you're not really going to recover. You're just going to have different problems, or maybe if you're lucky, you're able to get past some of those problems that brought you to recovery in the first place. I think this happens a lot of times when we walk with Jesus. We think we know what the problem is, and we start walking with Jesus, spending time with Him daily, going to recovery ministry, being in counseling, and yes, we are able to address some of those behavioral issues, but then I think we start to realize those are only surface level. The more you dig, the more you realize, hey, there's some other issues here. You know, those things were happening because of these things, were happening because of these things. And my point is that if you want to live a life with Jesus, if you want to allow Him to be the Lord of your life, and you want to allow Him to shape you into His likeness, you gotta be prepared to find all the other broken stuff, and you've gotta be prepared to allow Jesus to fix all of it. Because if you don't 100% surrender to Jesus in your life and allow Him to fix all the broken parts, you're not gonna end up whole. You're not gonna end up where you wanna be. And 6 months down the road, you're gonna crash and burn. So just like I knew that I had to replace all the parts of my Tacoma to keep it safe, to keep it working right, I know that in my recovery work this year, that I have to allow Jesus to fix all the broken parts of my life. I can't hold anything back, because that's the only way that I'm going to experience an intimate relationship with Him. That's the only way I'm gonna have true recovery. That's the only way that I'm going to ensure that I'm not just ditching a few bad behaviors, but I'm truly yielding and surrendering my life to Jesus and allowing Him to sanctify me and allowing Him to turn me into the man of God that He wants me to be. So if I could tell you anything, I would say, when you want Jesus to fix stuff in your life, allow Him to fix everything. Don't hold anything back. Give it all to Him and just see what an amazing work He does in your life. I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. See you, man.